you sending to me?
I'm sending you my paper show notes that I wrote down very quickly.
I'm going to tell you what my mom used to tell me. You should be a doctor because your handwriting is illegible, just like a doctor's.
I did answer phones for doctors that never met me.
I don't see the connection there. Sorry. So,
I see the connection.
okay. I guess that's what's important.
Yep.
So new iPad and smart keyboard. Map making. Empty stores. Instacart. New kids. You have new kids?
So these are just a couple of the things that I wrote down. There was also a minor earthquake. Tell us a little bit about what happened in the local small community of Salt Lake City.
Local small. I mean, Salt Lake City it's actually quite a big area, square miles wise. The whole county is basically one city, or you can think of it as one city, and like the different townships and cities are just kind of suburbs or like neighborhoods that are just part of Salt Lake.
So are we talking about like the like Lehigh and
Yeah,
Pigeon?
so like West Valley, Kearns, Taylorsville, Magna, that's where the earthquakes have been happening. But the first big one hit downtown pretty hard and knocked out a bunch of power. So, yesterday morning around 7 a.m., yesterday was that? It was a Wednesday. That would have been March 18th. We're sound asleep in bed around 7 o'clock, shaken awake, like literally just shaken. And we live with my in-laws, and so my father-in-law's home. He hasn't left for work yet, and I can just hear him yelling. And my wife sits up in bed and she says, "What's going on?" And there's just chaos and panic just everywhere. And so me and my wife just like wake up in just straight into a panic, and we just grab each other and hold on to each other for a sec. And then we start to wake up a little bit more, and we hear my father-in-law yelling about the earthquake, and then we immediately think of our kids, so we jump out of bed. She goes to get the older two, which are in the bedroom right next to us, and I grab the baby, and we just,
And this is upstairs because the
yeah,
you said the basement is just a living area, right? But your bedrooms are upstairs.
right. So there's the second floor, the second story is where the bedrooms are, and then the main floor is where the kitchen and the main family room is, and then in the basement is kind of our separate living room, apart from my in-laws' space. So we're upstairs, we grab our kids, we just run downstairs, and then by then the shaking stopped. But, my father-in-law's absolutely in a panic. Maddie and I step into that space of just fear and panic. And so we just start trying to cope and trying to keep our kids calm and happy. And so we're like explaining that the earth is just cold and it's just like shaking because it's shivering because it's cold or something. And we turn on a movie to try and just take our minds off it, and these aftershocks keep coming, right? And it's just they're not a big deal at all. It's just like a little
Did
rumbling
you guys stay upstairs this whole time, or did you guys
just
go
on the
down to one
main
level
floor. So
lower?
we're on the main
Okay,
floor now in the main living area in case.
that's good.
Yeah, yeah. So in case some bigger shocks happen, we can just run out the front door. There's a field right in front of our front door.
Got it.
So our plan was to just run in the middle of this grass if the quakes came back stronger. They didn't, and like the shakes that we were feeling were just felt like somebody was jumping really heavy on the floor. And just a couple of things were rattling on the walls and stuff. But every time an aftershock came through, it just kind of built upon that unease and that uncertainty of what was going to
You
happen.
don't know if it's going to be another aftershock or if it's
Or if
another
it's a
big
big
one,
one,
or
right? And then, yeah, yeah. We're like looking for information on the internet, and there's just like instantly all these blog writers and freelance writers are writing all these doomsday these doomsday articles, and my father-in-law proceeds to read these partially out loud, just highlighting all of the worst parts. um, And so we just like get sucked into this fear, right?
mm,
And my in-laws they go to the store to get some supplies just in case. So we're at home and we're just trying to keep our kids happy, trying to keep our heads on straight, failing miserably. And then my father-in-law calls me and he's like, the University of Utah Seismology Center is predicting a 9.0 aftershock in 30 minutes.
jeez.
And so every attempt I had at keeping myself calm just went right out the window at that point. And like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
all I can do to not start like screaming in front of my kids. I'm just dying trying to keep a calm demeanor in front of my kids. But my 2-year old he's just so sensitive to energy, and he starts flipping out, and that makes it even harder to stay calm. And I'm telling Maddie, like, your dad just said there's a 9.0 earthquake coming in 30 minutes. That's gonna level the city. That's like stuff
Yeah.
that destroys
Yeah.
Japan, right? So she runs upstairs, throws some stuff in a duffel bag, and we get in the car and we just start driving south. We just get the heck out of there. We just start driving around, and then we start to calm down a little bit as we get farther away from the epicenter. Like once we calm down, we just start thinking, and then once our thoughts started going, we got right back into that fear. It got so bad for me. I called my mom, and I was just talking to her. She lives in St. George, or in Hurricane, about 4 hours south of where I live. And I'm just telling her like what's going on, what I've heard. She says, you can come. We've got space for you. Come stay with us for a couple of days. Like, that's totally fine. And that helped me out
Just
a
kind of
little
have
bit.
some direction or
Yeah,
some
just to
option to
have
look at.
right, just to have something, because that whole day we were just driving around for hours and hours, just not knowing what the heck we were gonna do, because we had a hastily thrown together duffel bag for a 4-month-old baby, 2 toddlers, and 2 adults. Like, there's no way we could have actually left town and been able to live. We didn't have any
Mm-hmm.
clothes. It was just like a handful of diapers and some clothes for the kids, not even anything for us. And so we decided, all right, we're gonna go back to the house and at least pack a decent bag, so if it's still gonna be bad, if there's still gonna be aftershocks, we can just be ready to go to my
And
parents'
I
house.
mean, was it already like midday by that
Yeah,
time,
so
or?
that was like right at noon. We started heading back home at noon, and it took us probably an hour and a half to get home. We stopped for lunch, and on that hour drive home, I just started getting sick with anxiety
Mm.
again. And like, I tried all these different meditation techniques of trying to breathe it out, trying to like really focus on what I was afraid of, like what was making me anxious, and I could not for the life of me like shake this fear, this anxiety. So we got back to the house, and the kids, my 2-year-old was asleep, and the 4-month-old was asleep. And so I stayed in the car with them, and my wife and my 4-year-old go in, and they start packing a bag, and I'm just panicking. So I call my friend Dane, and I say, hey man, I need you to do some energy work on me. I'm stuck in fear right now, and I cannot shake it. So he like asks some clarifying questions just to see what's going on, and then he integrated me to be clearly connected with my fear and with the earthquakes, so that I could at least see in my mind what I was afraid of. And from there, I could actually think about that first earthquake that woke us up, and the terror and the panic that I felt, and I was able to actually process that a little bit. And that helped tremendously to calm me down. And so we ended up staying home, and we did a little bit more reading, because we'd been looking on like the United States Geological Service website, as well as like the University of Utah website, and we'd been like calling other people and texting other people, and there was just so much conflicting information, and that was kind of playing into our fear, because a lot of the fear was just the unknown. We didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know what to expect. And so once I got integrated, I was able to clearly think about what was actually going on and read a little bit more and look at some numbers and make an informed decision that it was safe.
Was the
And
time
so
that
we
the
stayed.
9.0 was supposed to come, had that already passed?
Oh yeah, yeah. So we were driving south. So the most of the earthquakes have been happening like 10 miles north of us. The epicenters were about 10 miles north of my
So
house.
did there end up actually being a 9.0, or was
No,
it not as? Because
no, nothing like that even happened at all. And
which is good.
so
This,
that
yeah.
was kind of my experience. Oh yeah, absolutely. That was kind of my experience of the day. It was just like all the fear and the stuff, and then what helped me come out of it. But like what actually happened was We had a 5.7 earthquake at 7:09 yesterday morning, and all of the aftershocks after that were like 3.9, 2.5, really like a lot smaller. The biggest aftershock we had was 4.6 yesterday. And then I did some more reading after we decided to stay the night at home on the University of Utah's seismology department website. And I read the statistics, and the statistics were so much less than we had thought when we were
Mm-hmm.
panicking. So they started off by saying there's no scientifically accepted way to predict an earthquake in any way. So like all this information is based off of earthquake data collected from around the world over, as long as we've observed and
Yeah.
recorded earthquakes. So a 5.7 earthquake is 95% sure to be the biggest earthquake of that series. There's about a 5% chance that an aftershock could be a 5.7 or higher, and there's less than 1%. I think it said about 1 in 300 could be between a 7.0 and a 7.5 aftershock.
Based
And
on the historical
a
data.
9 point, right, based on historical data. And based on geographical data, a 9.0 earthquake is physically impossible in the state of Utah.
I was gonna, because I was about to. So
So,
I had it written down here. I was like trying to figure out. I was like,
uh-huh.
what is Utah on to make a 9.0 earthquake to happen?
Right, yeah, that you have to be on like a
Like you have to
tectonic
be on like on top of it,
in between like
like
in between
on yeah
two
on the fish.
large
Yeah.
tectonic plates. So there's a bunch of fault lines in Utah which are just they're just essentially cracks in a tectonic plate. But to have an earthquake that big, you have to be like in between two very large
Because I
tectonic
know, and
plates.
on top of that as well, I know there are plates that don't act as well with each other than others. So they're like
Hmm.
you could be on the top of the middle, and still not be in nearly as much danger than some.
Yeah, that's kind of it. That's today we felt two little tiny baby aftershocks in between 7 and 8 in the morning. And then around noon we were down in the basement and we actually heard another one, but we didn't even feel it down in the basement. It's been really, really
The
calm.
5.7 is the highest
Hmm.
one so far.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Oh
most
yeah, by
likely
far.
that's good.